Hey guys, I'm Dr. Bob, and in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about player-centered design and playtesting. Now, this video is going to be a little bit more personal than the ones that I usually do, since I'm going to talk a lot about a game that I used to work on myself way back in the days as my prime example. I hope you'll like it. Let's get to it. So in this video, we're going to talk all about the role of your eventual players in the game development process. And as the title of the video already revealed, we want their role to be front and center. That is why it's called player-centered design. Now, historically, player-centered design is actually a term that originated from the field of human-computer interaction, which is sometimes referred to as HCI or CHI, as the latter is the name of the biggest conference on the topic. So in human-computer interaction, user-centered design has been a staple of user experience and interaction design for many years. It was coined in the late 1970s and popularized by the famous designer researcher and professor Donald Norman, who you are seeing in the video right now. But very briefly, it is used to refer to how users are brought in early throughout each stage of the design process to ensure that a design meets their needs in each and every way, but specifically with the goal of maximizing usability. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to define usability then, which is a bit of a tangent, so let's go to Wikipedia and see what they provide as a definition. And at the time of putting this video together, Wikipedia defines usability as such. It is the condition for users to perform tasks safely, effectively, and efficiently. And while we're at it, the definition also talks about it would be great if it could be an enjoyable activity as well. Now, I like this definition quite a bit, but I'm somewhat surprised that it's talking about enjoying the tasks, as for something that came from the 1970s, that's quite forward thinking. Now, that's not too surprising maybe, since this is a 2019 definition for a concept that might have been around for many years. And if we're looking at the paper where this came from, they're actually citing somebody else's definition, this definition in particular. And looking at it, you can already see why I was surprised originally. This is a definition from 2014, and it does not include enjoyment as a usability component, despite being written not that long ago. Okay, so you're probably wondering at this point, why is all of this relevant, Bob? I already know that despite Wikipedia being absolutely awesome, I should not trust its sources to always be accurate, especially when doing academic research, right? But this actually goes to show you quite an interesting dynamic in the field of human-computer interaction. As time has gone on, academics have moved from the pure functional aspects of a design to its entertainment or motivating value as well. And even though usability used to be a story about efficiency and safety, the field has recognized that humans, they just want to have fun. Humans! And so around the turn of the millennium, people start to think about playability, about enjoyability, and the phrase player-centered design, it grew alongside user-centered design. And actually, looking at Google Scholar, it looks like the first paper that coined the term was actually by my European human-computer interaction friends in Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands in 2004. Now, I actually did not know that when I started prepping for this video. I knew my human-computer interaction friends were awesome, they still are, but this made me think, I do need a player-centered design and playtesting video for my class this year, so what if I just use some examples from projects related to the people that coined the dang term and that baby Dr. Bob, this idiot here, was actually involved with? So hang on to your seatbelts, folks, and get ready for a blast from the past.
Lynn Wezenbeek met het nieuws.
Spelletjes spelen op de computer hoeft niet enkel leuk te zijn, je kan er ook veel door bijleren. In Leuven zijn vandaag een paar zogenaamde serious games voorgesteld. Dat zijn spelletjes voor op de computer of spelcomputer die zowel kinderen als ouderen dingen laten bijleren. Ik ben ook klaar.
Oma en opa de Putter en hun 2 kleinkinderen spelen een wel heel eigenaardig spel. De grote teletijdshow op een spelcomputer.
Dit is heel leuk, hè? En daar leert je ook veel nieuwe dingen mee. Wat ook interessant is, dat je na verloop van 1 spelletje, dan kun je op die toets hier van achter drukken en dan krijg je de uitleg.
Welkom in de grote teletijdshow.
Aan de hand van een paar quizvragen kunnen de spelers punten verdienen. En het zijn niet altijd de kinderen die het meest weten.
Vragen waren dat van vroeger meer. Of liedjes van vroeger, dat weten ze heel goed.
En de schoolbak?
Ja, de schoolbak, aan mij nog niet.
Het spel is ontwikkeld door de Hogeschoolgroep T uit Leuven. Met een zogenaamde Serious Games willen ze laten zien dat spelletjes op de computer spelen meer kan zijn dan enkel amusement.
Het is de bedoeling om senioren en kleinkinderen samen in de living achter de Nintendo Wii met elkaar te laten spelen. En op die manier hebben ze samen een leuke tijdsverdrijf waar dat ze ook nog iets nuttig mee doen. Ze leren over elkaar dingen bij.
Maar het blijft een spel natuurlijk en dan moet je winnen.
En kunnen oom en opa goed tegen hun verlies als ze eens verliezen?
Ja. Want ja, ik kan daar ook wel tegen, maar niet zoveel als in.
De groep T van Leuven wil zijn computerspelletjes nu tot in de klas krijgen.
I know. What the F did you just watch, right? So that is the Grote Teletijdshow, or Blast from the Past, the first game that I was paid to work on. Don't laugh, this game made me a professional game designer. And here's a quick fact sheet for context. So, Blast from the Past is an academic proof of concept developed for short of $500,000 at the time by 5 people in 67 person months spread across about 2 years. It is older than Unity 3D, and Unreal Engine was ridiculously expensive at the time for us to license, so we used an engine that was called Virtuals. And as you can see, this was academic indie game development well before that was a thing, and I ended up wearing so many different hats at the time. Just like pretty much everybody else on the project, actually. This is what the development team looked like, and I want to give a quick shout out here to the brilliant Vero van den Nabil and Stef de Smet, by the way, who hardly get enough credit for the amazing work they've done in this field. Now, Blast from the Past, despite it never being commercialized, is actually the perfect game to teach you about player-centered design. And there are 2 big reasons for that. First, it was one of the first games designed with this principle actively in mind. Second, this is a game with an absolutely fascinating design challenge that really calls for a player-centered approach. It was a game about developing knowledge transfer between 2 vastly different audiences, grandparents and grandchildren, and that could be quite a challenge, especially back then. On the one hand, you have an audience that has high prior knowledge about games, it plays them a lot, and it is mainly looking for action in the games that they like. On the other hand, you have an audience that at the time barely played any games and that preferred relaxation in their media preferences. Now, being a brilliant human-computer interaction scholar, Vero immediately recognized how much of a challenge this could be, and since player-centered design was still in its infancy, Vero decided to have the team work on a design framework based on the available literature. We called it the PIII framework, which might give you a chuckle if you're an engineer, as it sounds a little bit like It has the following 4 tenets. The first tenet is player-centered design, and it's defined as game design that involves the player right from the start and throughout the entire design and development process. I'll show you how that's done in a second. The second tenet was iterative development. As there are so many question marks to this design challenge, it requires an iterative and incremental approach to game design and development, which goes well with involving the player at every step of the process. Third, the framework demands collaboration between designers, developers, domain experts, and the players. It's about promoting diversity and to ensure that everyone is involved throughout the entire process. So we want our programmers to do some user research, and we want our designers to write some code.
You could take me through what you're doing right now.
I'd be delighted. I'm just working on a very simple piece of programming code.
I see.
Or if that doesn't work, being aware of what the programming team is doing works just fine. And finally, there is integrated play and learning, which is my pet peeve in applied game design if you've been watching my videos. The knowledge transfer needs to happen through the gameplay itself, through the fun parts, and it shouldn't be tacked on. And those are the 4 tenets of the PIII framework. Let's take a quick look under the hood now. And this is what player-centered, iterative, interdisciplinary, and integrated game development actually looks like. It starts with a user and task analysis phase during which the entire team went out to figure out what both of these audiences actually wanted. You can use a lot of different research methods for this, but this is what we actually ended up doing. A recruiting agency recruited 10 grandchildren between 9 and 10 years of age and 10 healthy and active seniors between 65 and 78 years for us. And everyone on our team visited at least one of these pairs at their homes, always with a researcher around, of course, as this does require a trained professional to be around. And we left a photo camera and a diary and asked them to record the things that they cared about the most in their lives, which you're currently seeing in the video. We interviewed them 3 times at the start, middle, and end of a regular week, and by doing all that, we defined some intended emotional outcomes for the game. Cultivation, so both of them enjoyed learning about interesting things and becoming better at things. Connectedness, both of them liked shared activities with people that they cared about. And contribution, the seniors in particular enjoyed contributing something to younger generations. Now, you could look at these as our MDA aesthetics, which is an entirely different video that I will link to in the description. Next, we got to designing a bit, and again, we brought on our future players as we engaged in participatory design. Again, this is a human-computer interaction method, and in this one, we used a brainstorming tool that involves a lot of post-its and a big poster to brainstorm with our future players. In the picture, you can actually see David the artist and Jelle the programmer brainstorm with 5 future players. This led to the master list on the right of the slide, and at the end, we had the team visualize their ideas with crafting materials. The ideas themselves were very helpful, but in this phase, that's not really what you are looking for. You're not just trying to copy exactly what they are suggesting. It's more helpful to learn how they speak about the game ideas, what they care about, and what they really value in them. And that's an important takeaway of this video, actually, because it's common in player-centered design for your target players to design what they know. Take the game idea from the bottom right, for example. It looks pretty cool, right? It has cars, it has a mini-map, there's a police officer, a criminal, a robber. Wait a minute, are you just trying to get us to make GTA for you? This is actually quite common for target players to design what they know, and that's fine because the design team can pretty much take it from there anyways. For us, that meant getting to the concept definition phase, in which we decided on the following 3 ideas. Now, one of these ideas was named Blast from the Past, but it was still very different from the eventual game. Of course, given that we're doing player-centered design here, we want to involve everyone, so the next phase is another checkup phase. And during this checkup, you bring in your players again, along with some domain experts, and you can discuss the ideas that you have and make a final call. For us, that final call ended up being a mix of the Blast from the Past concept that you saw earlier, alongside the Kinships Chronicles, which was another concept that we had. The resulting game ended up being an old school game show with some trivia, with some action, and some user-generated content so that families could tell the story of their family to their grandchildren, which sounded like a pretty cool idea at the time. Great, so with that decision out of the way, we are ready to leave our concept design phase and move into the actual game design phase of the PIII framework. Now, the stages in game design are going to happen really quickly, but they are presented in succession here, as this was a small team with limited resources. I would say that some of these could certainly be done synchronously. Also, in this stage, we are going to go work closely with our target audience again, so that part is certainly not going to change. And more specifically, PIII starts with storyboarding and focus groups. Now, given the nature of this project, this phase ended up being a comic book that ran our players throughout the entire game, mainly to see if the narrative and the context of the concept would hold up when it is visualized. This worked out really well for our testers, and at this point we started to try out paper prototypes and to get into our first playtests. Wait, playtests? Isn't that one of the key topics of the video? Well, it certainly is, but I'll have to get back to that in a bit, because playtesting happens a lot in player-centered design. In fact, as soon as you have something to play, the idea is to get your target audience to play it, for you to analyze what could be better, make it better, and then play it again and again until it is really great. Now, one mistake that I see a lot of my students make here is that they try to make as much of the game as possible and then playtest the entire thing in one go. For a small game with one specific mechanic, you might be able to pull it off sometimes, but most of the time, it's way better to work with multiple smaller tests. And for Blast from the Past, we had 4 small playtests that we used before we even got started on the code. In the top left, there is a paper prototype for the trivia. This was a so-called Wizard of Oz test, which means that the players thought that they were playing a video game while it was actually controlled by a human behind the scenes. It allows us to test out many trivia mechanics in the game and see if they would work well. In the top right and the bottom right, there were some weird little prototypes that we made for some of the Nintendo Wiimote interactions that we were going to do to get some sense of their cognitive load and overall gameplay. And in the bottom right, you see footage from Mario Party, a game that we didn't work on, but that game had some mini games similar to the ones that we were going to be building. Yeah, and we tested those with our target demographic, and we had some surprising findings there. We were able to figure out that some mechanics that we thought were going to be too difficult for the group to actually be great, and that some of the ones that we thought were going to be a perfect fit fell flat entirely. It was so surprising we were able to publish a paper on the findings, so that was a great development. And from there, we went on to put together our design document. A design document is usually supposed to be a living document that you change whenever you change the game. But we also had that, but we also made a very nice illustrated 36-page one that was even in theme with the game's deliberately tacky color palette, so that it would be nice for our target players and stakeholders to read, because you guessed it, player-centered design means involving everyone in every step. There you go. And the resulting discussion wrapped up the game design phase as well as any pre-production, and while some changes were suggested, we were able to move into the production phase, or as PIII calls it, game development. And that's the phase that I can discuss in one single go, as it is mostly a matter of building parts of your game, playtesting those parts, refining them, building more things, playtesting them again and again and again until you reach your final prototype and you're ready to launch your game. Certainly, that's a little bit of a simplified look at the production phase of a game development project, but this is a video about player-centered design and playtesting rather than game production, of course. And with that being said, I am getting to the end of it, and before we are done, I think it's now time to talk a little bit about how you run your playtests and what you can take away from what we learned from the Blast from the Past playtest. Let's start by looking at a short clip that was recorded back then.
Jullie mogen mij gerust volgen. We hebben een 5-tal mensen uitgenodigd, 2 senioren en 3 kinderen. We gaan hen loslaten op dat spel. We gaan vooral heel goed opletten. We gaan kijken wat zij zelf van dat spel vinden, wat zij er goed aan vinden, wat ze er fout aan vinden.
Laten we dan maar beginnen.
Goed zo.
Het concept van de grote teletijdshow is eigenlijk een soort spelshow uit de jaren 70-80, maar duidelijk met een educatief karakter.
Gebruik het kruisje op de afstandsbediening om je antwoord aan te duiden.
Kinderen kunnen van senioren bijleren, maar anderzijds is het ook leuk dat senioren met de nieuwe media, met de nieuwe technologieën aan de slag kunnen. En dat ze daar ook iets over leren.
Harder over.
Goed zo. Het spel is inderdaad heel braaf. En het moeilijke aan dit spel is eigenlijk dat je een soort balans moet vinden tussen het plezante, de fun factor, maar anderzijds ook het educatieve.
Zo zijn er wel spelletjes dat je echt moet vechten en zo, maar ik vind dat niet zo leuk en zo. Ik speel niet zo graag. Het was een leuk spel en ik kon er ook iets uit leren. Zo gaat zo ook weetjes. Dat Boudewijn is gestorven is in 1993.
Kandidaat 4. Ik grijp een beetje terug naar de gezelschapsspelen van vroeger.
Ik vind het wel goed en het is ook grappig.
Alsjeblieft.
Daar zijn vragen bij van de kleinkinderen, waar ik van tijd is, moet je op nadenken.
Ik denk dat de bedoeling is dat je ook iets anders speelt als gewelddadige spelletjes.
Well, I hope you like big captioning fonts, but you get the idea. Now, there are some key takeaways that I want to push through here. First, you want to stay close to how the game will eventually be played. As you can see in the video, the playtest took place in a space where we are trying to facilitate an environment that is as natural as possible when it comes to the target audience. Now, you don't always need to bring the target audience, but you want to do it as much as you possibly can. Not just because it's player-centered design, but because it's easy to lose track of them if you don't. Second, if you remember the earlier playtests that we discussed, you don't have to do the entire game the entire time. You don't want to test the entire game. It's often a good idea to just focus on specific parts of it and to do smaller, more controlled tests instead. To this end, it's often helpful to talk to your programmers about this so that they are aware of certain areas of your game that you might want to be able to load separately. Third, you are going to need a script, which includes everything you're going to tell your playtesters, everything you're going to ask them, and timestamps for how long you think everything's going to take. And if you're looking for inspiration on what that might look like, I really recommend Tracy Fullerton's book, Game Design Workshop, A Play-Centric Approach for Creating Innovative Games, which has an excellent section on playtesting, and it provides an example script which includes some of the questions that I'm going to show you right now. The idea here is that you're asking far more directed questions than just asking, is this game fun? Or did you have any issues with the game? You want to make sure that you learn everything you need to learn so that you can make the game better. In fact, I would even recommend to put on your science head. Ooh, science head. You can use scientific instruments such as the freely available player experience inventory that was designed by my European colleagues. It will allow you to measure the player experience scientifically and quantify how well the game is doing. Or you could implement a so-called think aloud protocol by asking your playtesters to externalize their thoughts as they are playing. There is so much information you can get from hearing how people think while they are playing your game. So Intrusion 2, no idea what this is, going in blind. So I'm clicking on start. Okay, looks like this is some sort of a parachuting game or something. Well, let's just, I don't know. I don't care about the level. Like, why isn't there a start button here? Like, let's just click on. Okay. So it's probably not a shooting simulator. I'm thinking this is like a Contra style side-scrolling shooter. Oh yeah, this is pretty cool. I love how the rock just went down out of nowhere. Let's see how can I push it or something? Are they trying to teach me what I can do? Can I jump? Yeah, so I'm jumping with the up button. So I was just, first I press space, then I press the up button, and I really like the physics of this. This feels nice. I wish it was space though. Let's press escape and let's see if I can make jump. Space, oh, mech attack is space. Fine. Alright, let's just keep doing. Next, with all that preparation, you want to make sure that you test the test before you test. Don't go in blind with a playtest protocol that you've never done before. Have some folks of the team pretend to be playtesters and try it out before you actually use it. That way you won't run into unpleasant surprises and you will be a better playtesting coordinator as well. And finally, be critical of your playtests. For instance, when I asked my playtesters for Bruegel some of the basic questions you saw earlier, it became apparent that they did not like the way I had set up the character. They felt that the movement was too slow, they felt that the scale was wrong, and so on. Now, I could have changed the game to accommodate that, but as the author of the game, I really did not like those suggestions, so I changed up my playtesting questions. You see, the reason why the controls were the way they were was because you were supposed to be playing as a 6'8" or 2 meters and 3 person in an old house that was not built for someone your height. That was an extremely important part of how I wanted this game to feel. So when I started to ask my questions differently, for instance, how would you describe the person you were playing as? It became clear that the game was actually doing what it wanted to do really well. And that the issue was not the movement speed, but conveying to the player that you are in fact a tall person in a small house. So be critical of your playtesting results, as they might not tell the right story if you did not ask the right questions or perhaps measured the right phenomenon. And that's going to be it for this video. Unfortunately though, none of these things are really easy. Playtesting and player-centered design are time and labor intensive. It's a lot of work, and in return, you'll get to hear that your game is really not that good yet, despite your best efforts. I really don't like to do playtests. It's a necessary evil. But if you stick with it, you'll find that the final game that you develop will be more rewarding for it, as your players will absolutely love it. Blast from the Past did so well that we even demoed it live on stage with people who had never played the game before, as we knew exactly how it was going to go, despite them not being the most stereotypical gamers. Because that, my friends, is the power of player-centered design and well-coordinated playtesting. Now you might be thinking, what about Reggie? Could you do some pet-centered game design methods and make a game for a dog like him? And it turns out you absolutely can. I'll put a link in the description. Because if there's one thing that Reggie needs, aside from treats, it's more games. Anyways, we'll see you guys around. Bye-bye.